All right, is this better? I think it sounds better. We are back. Yes, is this better? Hopefully, this is better. Hallelujah. We fixed it and we can talk. Sweet. Awesome. Well, we'll just wait around for some people to join us again. Sorry about that. I think the problem was I had a window open that had the stream on it, and so it was we were getting some feedback and stuff. So now I know better not to do that. Awesome. Cool. All right. So if you guys have any questions, I want to just help you out today. Any questions about getting started in animation, whether it's getting started in learning how to do animation or getting started in getting your first job in animation, anything that has to do with that, I want to try to help you guys out today. And I'll just kind of be animating a bouncing ball if there's nothing going on. So go ahead and put your questions in the chat, and yeah, let me know. Let me know how I can help you guys out. All right. And then, as always, too, if there's we had some problems with the audio. If there's anything, if you can't hear me, or maybe the music's too loud, or whatever, or it's too quiet, let me know and I can fix it. So awesome. What I'm going to do is start to animate this bouncing ball with the graph editor. Some people have trouble with the graph editor, so and I'm going to zoom this out. When you don't have a lot of real estate on your screen, you can just have a tab. Like I have this tab for the graph editor that I can just click on. It opens it up, and then I can click it again, and it closes it. So that's something I do set up. All right, here we go. Thanks for the stream. Just starting to learn Maya 3D and signed up for a crash course. I have a little background in concept art storyboarding. Will it be helpful going forward? So will your background in storyboarding help? Yes. Definitely, especially if you already know posing. So for storyboarding, a lot of times you have to figure out how to create a pose. Like, let me find one pose that tells this moment, and that will be very helpful in animation, in 3D animation especially, because a lot of times when we're animating, we'll do a pose-to-pose animating. Right now, what I'm doing with the bouncing ball doesn't apply to that. I'm going to be doing it in a layered format with the graph editor, but usually it will be one pose and then another pose, and then you kind of work out the breakdowns and stuff like that. So yeah, storyboarding, concept art, that kind of stuff will definitely help you if you already know like figure drawing. Like, definitely studying poses will help you. So if you can draw out a pose, so let's say someone gives you a scene and you need to animate it, if you could draw it out before you actually get into Maya, you're going to be light years ahead of other people that like if they just open up Maya and stare at a rig in a T pose and then have to work it out into and try to find the pose that they want, it's going to take them longer than someone who already has a pose drawn out and they can look at that or reference. That's why a lot of people use reference, because if they're not good at drawing. You can use live reference as well. So you find a pose of you physically doing it live to a camera, and then you can kind of try to match that pose with the rig as well. But yeah, that'll definitely help you out. So that's awesome that you're learning Maya. I know a lot of people will jump into Blender because it's free, but I suggest learning Maya because every job I've ever had, we've used Maya. I've never used Blender for to make money, like for a job. I know there are some studios that use Blender, so you just want to find out where you want to work and what they're using, and then learn that. The concepts are still the same. It's just software. There are some places that have their own software. Where so it doesn't matter if you know Maya or Blender. You'll have to learn their software when you get there, but all the concepts are all the same. So whatever software you used to learn, you can learn on Blender, and then maybe if it's for now you just want to learn the basics, you want to learn on Blender, go for it, and then learn Maya if you want to work at a place that knows Maya, because they might be less inclined to hire you if they have to teach you Maya, so at least have an understanding of how it works. But yeah, guess these references for my artwork now. Yeah. So that's perfect. Yeah, I mean, some people have been told that using reference is cheating, and it's not at all. It helps you, and that's what the old Disney animators, they all used live reference as well. And that's why they had a mirror at their desk. They could look at themselves and then draw it. No, I don't know why people would say that's cheating. What's cheating is copying someone else's work. That's cheating. But no, looking at live reference, that's not cheating at all. And especially when you're first learning. You can look up poses. There's lots of different websites that have like figure drawing poses where you can try to figure draw. Well, you can use those pictures and then try to make those. Try to pose the rig. So it's kind of like figure drawing, but in 3D. So try to pose the rig as much as you can to look like that reference. That's great practice, because if you can really get good at matching a reference, then you're ahead of the game. Another thing to think about, though, is also like using two cameras. So like right here, I have this orthographic camera, for the bouncing ball. So orthographic just means from the side and you can't tumble it. It's like a flat image of like it's exactly straight on from the side. And then this one over here is like a perspective camera where I can tumble around from different angles. So if you're working out a pose, don't just do it to camera, because a lot of times what looks good to camera doesn't look good in 3D. And so it might look good just for that one frame, but then when something's in motion and you want it to look a little bit more natural, it has to work from all angles, even though you're only going to see it from the one angle. The quicker, it took me a long time to get better at that, mainly because if you're in a hurry and you just want to animate the camera because you want to get the job done, that's understandable. But the quality of your work is going to be worse, because your leads will see that there's something wrong, but they can't tell you. So if they're not going into your Maya file, they're just seeing the final product, they're not going to know exactly what's wrong, and they won't exactly know how to tell you what's wrong, because there's something that, maybe you're doing some sort of weird cheat with the shoulder or something. They don't know. They won't be able to tell you how to fix it, or I don't know. It's just going to cause more problems. So the more that you can work it out to work from multiple angles, just spin around in a perspective view and look at it from different angles and be like, okay, does that look right? Does that look natural? Yeah, okay. And then go to your next pose and just keep checking. Do a little perspective check for all your poses, and that's before you get into spline. So this is in a pose to pose fashion, which is usually the best way to start learning. I would hold off on getting into a layered approach until maybe later. It's good to understand it, so that's why I'm doing that here with the bouncing ball with the graph editor. It's good to understand what the graph editor is doing, because eventually you're going to take all of your pose to pose poses, and then people say, oh, you hit spline and then it looks like crap. Well, it shouldn't if you understand what's happening in the graph editor, right? And so if you plan it out well, and then you transfer those keyframes into spline, or auto tangent, or whatever you're going to use, then all you're doing is going into the graph editor and making those curves work correctly with each other and stuff. And so, yeah, I would first learn pose to pose, and then get into some, maybe some layered animation, and then maybe finding a workflow that works best for you. Because some people maybe they'll be like, oh, I totally understand layered better, and other people will be like, I only understand pose to pose, and that's fine, however you work. But I've ran into so many leads who they just want to see stepped. They want to see your blocking in stepped, so that's more pose to pose. So you have to know how to do that. Even if you're a layered animator, you have to know how to do the pose to pose, or at least how to translate your spline into finding the right keys to put it into stepped, so that your lead can know how to give you feedback. So anyways, hopefully that's not too confusing. But yeah, let me look at the chat here. What do we got? Was thinking of learning Unreal after I get up to speed on animation Maya. Yeah. Yeah, Unreal is a great thing to learn too. If you're wanting to get into like in-game animation, so you're animating like the idols and the punches, the jumps, and the attacks, all that kind of stuff. Unreal is something that you should definitely learn how to use. I took a little in-game class at Animation Mentor, which was great. It's only like 6 weeks, and it really gives you like all the basics that you need to know, and I highly recommend that. It's not too expensive. Like I said, it's only 6 weeks, but you learn a lot. So yeah, if that's something you want, another tool you want in your belt, go ahead and learn that. I haven't professionally had to use Unreal yet, but I do have to keep in mind when I'm working in Maya, is this going to translate in Unreal? Because almost everything goes to Unreal or some sort of game engine. So you have to be mindful of that as well. So like deformers is something to look out for. If you're used to using deformers to get the shape that you want, a lot of times that won't translate to Unreal. And so you have to, be in touch with your Unreal techs, tech animators, all that stuff, and find out, hey, is this okay if I do this in Maya? Will it show up in Engine? So that's something to think about, right? Let's see here. We got King Cube creator. How much of getting better in animation is intuition, knowledge, or repetition? That's a great question. So intuition, I think there are some people that are just bent to understanding how things move, and maybe they've just been a little bit more observant in life, of seeing how things naturally move and understanding physics. There's a lot of physics involved, so if you understand how physics works in the real world, that'll help translate into animation. Knowledge, definitely. I mean, you gotta read the books, read the great books. We've got, like the Animator Survival Kit, Richard Williams. This is definitely one you need to go to. Here, I'm going to go to the chatting one so you can see it a little bit bigger. Animator Survival Kit by Richard Williams. If you don't have that, you got to get that. It has everything. This is like, they call it the Bible of animation. And then another one I suggest, it kind of simplifies things. This is more, both of these are more about hand-drawn animation, but it applies. So it's the principles. Is this character animation crash course by Eric Goldberg. This has helped me out a lot as well. There's all kinds of online resources. There used to be a site taught by a pro. I don't know if it's still around. The Bancroft brothers had that. Aaron Blaze has a lot of very inexpensive videos that you can get from him. There's lots of stuff on YouTube. Just learning, the 12 principles is definitely what you need to do. So I remember when I was first learning, I would keep a log of the 12 principles, and I would give myself a grade on each one and figure out, okay, so that way you would know which one do I need to work on more. So I'm like, okay, I'm really understanding this one, but this one, man, I don't understand this principle. So now I'll find some resources and maybe some exercises that I can do in Maya to work that muscle and figure out, okay, now I understand that principle. What else can I do to understand a different principle? And when I was in Animation Mentor, I would do that with my different assignments as well. So I would think, okay, I've got this assignment I need to do. And hold on, this song has talking in it. It's driving me nuts. All right, sorry. ADD, squirrel. So for each assignment, I would think about what workflow do I want to try out. I was trying to understand the difference between IK arms and FK arms, and so for one assignment I would just leave it in IK the whole time and see what that's like, and then you realize, okay, now I'm moving IK, but I have to move the elbow PV and then the pole vector, and I would have to animate that or put that in hand space or whatever. You would just have to sit there and figure out okay, so maybe it's faster to pose in IK, but I don't get the best arcs in IK. So when I'm in FK, I get great arcs. So maybe there's a way to use both IK and FK. So you won't know that until you start doing it, and so for each assignment I would try different things. So I wouldn't just try to get that assignment done. I would make sure that I'm making the most of this assignment by what principles do I want to learn from this. It would be great to do that, maybe write out a little goal before each assignment. It's like, okay, I know what this one's about. Write out a goal. I want to learn these principles. I want to try IK arms, whatever it is. Write it out so that you know what you want to do for each assignment. That way, by the time you're done with school, you've already tried a bunch of different workflows. It's better if you fail a lot in school, because guess what? Most of that stuff that you do in school, those exercises, it's not going to be on your demo reel that gets you the job. So don't even worry about. A lot of people are like, oh, but I don't want to mess up my demo reel. It doesn't matter. Don't try to impress people. You're trying to get the basics down in your head so that you can grow faster as an animator. And that's how, like, what was it, 6 years ago, I didn't know anything about animation. And now I just freaking animated Kratos' face in God of War. It's like, how does that happen? It's, you really got to put in the hard work and be efficient with what you're learning and how you're using your time. So hopefully that helps. What else we got? Hey, Night Cow, good day. Mikey says, my tutor is a graduate of Animation Mentors. It's great to hear. Yeah, Animation Mentor, guys, I'm telling you, you can get through that program in a year and a half, and you are light years ahead. I would say you're ahead of someone who just took a 4-year university class, dare I say. But it's true, and it's unfortunate. I mean, unless you're going to a school that really has an amazing animation program. A lot of them, it's just more generic because they're not, they want to cover all their bases. So you might learn modeling, and you might learn animation, you might learn storyboarding. And so it's like, you might spend a whole year on something that you're never going to use. It might be good. Like, there's been lots of great animators. They went to a 4-year university, and then they went to Animation Mentor afterwards, or something like that. Anim School, iAnimate, AnimC, the Animation Collaborative, all of those are great. I highly recommend those. I've taken classes at most of those, because you just want to keep learning too. You don't want to stop learning. There was a little while where I didn't animate. It was when I was working on faces and I was learning animating faces, and there was a while where I didn't animate a physical character for a while, and then I realized when I went back to it, it was almost like I had to relearn some of it again. So you don't want to lose. I would say just keep going with it and keep practicing. So now I make sure I'm always practicing everything, so I don't you don't want to take some steps backwards, right? And so there was a learning curve for me to get back. All of a sudden, then I had a job where I had to animate the full figure. And I was like, oh, man, it's been a while since I've done that. So if you have little exercises you can do, of like even just a character jumping or just walk cycles are the hardest thing to do. So if you get really good at that, you're ahead of the curve. Because with walk cycles, you learn weight, you learn balance in the body mechanics, you learn arcs. Really everything is in a walk cycle, and they're very difficult to do. That's why a lot of studios already have cycles in place that you can use, and then maybe you can add an animation layer on top of that to make it more specific to that character. But yeah, I remember on Crash Bandicoot there was a scene where there were 4 of the characters. I shared this recently. Four characters running in and then stopping and posing, and that was so difficult, even though I had walk cycles in the library, but now I had to make them specific to this moment. And so I started each one with a cycle and then ended up deleting a lot of the cycle. It was more of just like a base to start off of, so I'm just not starting with nothing, and then sitting there and fine-tuning. A lot of times it had to be frame by frame as well. So at least the walk cycle got me a lot of the key poses, and then I would have to go in there and just fine-tune the arcs and the body mechanics and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, hope that helps. Let me see, where were we at? Hello, hello, Alan. Good to see you again. It's awesome that you're here. What's your workload like? I.e., do you have time for a work-life balance? Yes, it is awesome. The job I have now, it's like a 9 to 5 job. It's actually I usually do 10 a.m. to 6:30, so I take a half-hour lunch in there. Um, which is great. I found starting at 10 a.m. instead of like 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. works best for me because I take my kids to school in the morning. The last one I drop off at 9, and so then I still have like an hour before I start work, so I can do things. I can stream with you guys. Um, I can just be quiet, have some quiet time, watch some TV, veg out. I can play a video game, whatever it is. I've found that balance in the morning to kind of be my time, because my wife goes off to work, the kids go off to school, and then there's just me for about an hour, and then I work from 10 to 6:30, and it's crazy. I work from home. I've always worked remote, um, and so it's great. A lot of these places that you work for that let you work remote, they're totally fine as long as you get all the work done. They're totally fine if you need to take a break to go pick up a kid or you got to go do. It's like family comes first, which is awesome. And so I definitely feel cared for, and I work hard as much as I can in those time slotted. I found because I'm ADD a little bit, it's hard for me to stay focused, like from 10 a.m. to 6:30, just focused on the computer the entire time. So usually about 45 minutes of focused time is great. 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and then maybe 10 or 15 minutes I'll get up and walk around or go get myself a snack or do something else so that my brain can kind of relax, and then I come back to the computer and focus again for another 45, 50 minutes. And that's kind of the balance I've found for myself. So I would definitely suggest to you guys, if you get a full-time job, don't give it your all the entire time. You're going to kill yourself. Like, and I know it sounds bad, don't give it your all, but I'm just saying, like, you have 100% full on gas pedals all the way down. You barely ever drive your car with the gas pedal all the way down all the time. You'll run out of gas quick, right? You conserve your gas and you find the right speed that works. So find the speed that works for you where you can, be focused for the better part of an hour and then take a small break and then focus better part of an hour, take a small break, because even though this job isn't physically demanding, it's mentally draining. um, it's if you're sitting there problem solving for an hour, you don't realize how exhausted you get, and then you're doing that for an entire day, and then your brain's like, man, I just need to take a break, right? And now I'll put on top of that, you have a family, you got kids you got to take care of, you got a wife, husband, whatever, and then you want to do a personal shot on top of that besides your full-time job. That's a lot, so you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself either. Make reasonable goals. So let's say you're working on a personal shot. Don't be like, all right, I want to have this shot done in a month. Well, you might only have 4 days in the month where you really feel like working on it. That's not realistic, so maybe in that situation it might take you 6 months to get through a personal shot of your own, and that's fine. And then you can't beat yourself up about that. But you find the right work-life balance that's for you, because your mental health is the most important. You want to be efficient at what you're doing, and you want to do this for a long time. So just don't kill yourself. Especially if you're a freelancer, put in vacation time. You need to think about that. So it's like, freelancers go from job to job, and they're worried about paying the bills. Make sure you charge enough so that you don't have to have a job the entire time. You have to think about, you got to charge enough for usually you have to buy your own computer, you have to buy your own software, you have to buy your own health insurance, and you have to have vacation and time off, right? So you got to factor all that in. You got to pay taxes. If you're a freelancer, you got to pay self-employment tax if you're in the US. So you have to think about all of that stuff. So don't just think about, I just want this job to animate because it's cool. Figure out how much money your time is worth, but then also all that other stuff, so you can take some time off and be healthy and do this for a long time. Otherwise, you're just going to do it for a little bit. You're going to get worn out, you're going to get burnt out, and then you're going to find a different job to do. So hopefully that helps. Let's see, where were we at? Da, da, da. I'm about to give up. So this is Night Cow. I'm about to give up, to be honest, 2 years, and I'm getting nowhere. If I feel of it, I pass. What is it? Pass with, as in back and dead end job. Never stop practicing. That's good. Yeah. So it's what, 2 years of you've been learning animation and trying to get into it more. And let me see what else Night Cow said. Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, if it's something you really want to do, don't give up. Just keep studying. And like when I was learning it, I was not in a rush to get an animation job. I remember Tony Bancroft said, I always reach out to your heroes too in animation. People are willing to help you. So I reached out to Tom and Tony Bancroft for advice, and Tony said, "Don't quit your day job," but he didn't mean that as in you suck, don't do this. He meant, you know what? If you've got a good job, don't be in a hurry to just grab an animation job. Like if you've got a great job already that at least pays the bills, and then you have free time to learn and do personal shots and all that kind of stuff, then do that. And that's what I did. That's what got me through Animation Mentor. I used to be a worship pastor, which was like doing music at churches, which was fun. It was great. It was creative, and it's not like it pays a lot, but it helped pay the bills. That job had health insurance as well, and so I got to do that full time as my full time job. I actually even brought that down as I was going, brought that down to part time, so I could have more time to freelance and stuff. But I slowly worked my way into full time animation. So it's okay if it's taken a couple years. That's fine. Stay in that job that pays the bills, but keep pushing yourself, keep practicing, keep going, and keep applying. If you don't feel like you are qualified for a job, that doesn't matter. Apply to it anyway. That's the best advice I can give, because a lot of times it'll say requirements. That list of requirements sometimes isn't correct. It's like they have a template that they use when they post a job, and they have all these requirements listed, but maybe the person hiring doesn't care about some of those things. What they care about mostly is what does your reel look like? What kind of work can you do for me? And if they see something in your work on your reel that they want, it doesn't matter if you didn't fulfill all these other commitments. It doesn't matter. If they see that on your reel and then they meet you and find out you're an awesome person, boom, you're getting hired. So that's what I would do. Keep working on those things. Make your reel as awesome as it can be, and be a great person to people. Help people out. You'd be surprised. People are watching you on social media. Especially if you've connected with people on LinkedIn that are in the industry, your stuff will show up in their timeline. If they see you helping other people out and your work is good, they're going to remember, hey, that's a good person that I want on my team. Because you got to be a good team player, that you're helping other people out and you're learning yourself and you're getting better. So don't give up, keep going. And if this is something you want to do, then you're going to do it. And I remember what I kept telling myself was, this is either a hobby or a job, but either way, I'm still doing it. Like, no one's going to tell me to stop. It's like, I'm going to keep going, and I have faith. I love God. I have a relationship with God. And so for me, there was that where I just said, all right, God, this is what you want me to do. Then I'll just pray that the doors keep opening, and actually it was a leap of faith. When I started Animation Mentor, I didn't have any money at that time. I just quit my other job because I wasn't getting along with some of the people there, and it was just like, it seemed like they were going in a direction that I didn't want to go in. So it was kind of one of those leap of faith moments where it's like, okay, now I don't have a job. I was working a minimum wage job, answering phones and putting in data just to try to pay bills. And that's when I decided to take Animation Mentor. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this, but I'm going to do it because I know this is what I need to do. And wouldn't you know, somehow I had the money for every time a payment came up. They let you do a payment plan. Every time payment came up, somehow I had the money, because in my life, God is good and He was faithful, and it just happened. So if this is something you want to do, you just go for it and you figure it out. And it's going to happen. Either it's a hobby or it's a job, but it's something you need to do, right? So hopefully that helps. Let's see, where were we at? Do you learn new things from other people on these streams? Hey, I'm new to Twitch, so I have not been. I've kind of looked around a little bit, so not on Twitch yet. I haven't been learning from others, but I learn a lot from. I mean, just reaching out to people that I see on, on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and now I'm on TikTok and Twitch. So just recently, I got on TikTok and Twitch, and so now I'm learning from people there too. So yeah, you just follow the people that you want to learn from, and then reach out to them. A lot of times they'll help you out. You'd be surprised in animation just how helpful people are and how much they're willing to help you out. Because maybe you're someone that can't afford all these classes. Some of these classes are pretty expensive, and you're like, I just can't do it. There's lots of online resources, but there's also animators. Look up some of your favorite animators and just write to them and say, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. Would you mind helping me out? And that's what I did with Tom and Tony Bancroft. I just reached out and I said, hey, I heard your podcast about mentors. How can I find one? And then that's when Tony gave me that don't quit your day job thing. But I think Tony was pretty busy at that time. But Tom said, hey, if you're ever in Nashville, come on out and let's have lunch. And so I actually did that a few times with Tom Bancroft, which is crazy. I'm like, this is the guy who runs this podcast that everybody listens to. But I just asked, how do I get a mentor? And so he met with me, a few times. And now whenever I see him at conferences, it's awesome. It's just great. It's like he's a friend, which is awesome. And, and he's the one that helped me, because at first I started off with hand-drawn animation. And he was the one that helped me go, he's like, you're probably 10 years away with hand-drawn animation of just even getting good at the fundamentals of it, and he's like, have you thought about 3D animation? And so it's because of him that I started learning 3D animation instead of hand-drawn. So I'm very thankful to Tom for that, and then that's when I went into Animation Mentor. But yeah, just reach out to people, guys. Ask for advice, ask for help. Maybe they won't be your mentor, but they'll give you some tips and advice, so go for it. That's what I say. Don't let anything hold you back. All right, we got Mikey saying, even though you work from home, it seems to me that most jobs in animation prefer folks to be on the West Coast, Canada, wherever the actual studio is. Do you think that's the case? Well, I don't know. I live in Las Vegas. I mean, I guess it's the West Coast, but I've worked for companies in New York, companies in Texas, and companies in California. I think that's it so far. I think as long as you're in the United States, that's a good start of being able to work at any of those studios. But at those studios, I worked with people that worked in different countries. So a lot of studios are open for that as well. Like the last job I was on, one of my great friends on there, he was working from Mexico. So, it's just, and my lead works from Canada. So you just don't know. It's like you just go ahead and apply for these jobs and let them know where you're at, what your situation is. If they want you, they'll make it happen, right? I heard recently DreamWorks is more open to people working remotely from around the United States. I don't know about Canada or Mexico yet, but I just heard that recently, that DreamWorks is open to that. So you never know. Maybe some of those big studios might start being more open to it as well. But definitely in video games, a lot of studios are open to remote working. The one where I work at, everybody's still full remote. So there's nobody that goes to the office except for the techs that have to work on the computers and servers and all that kind of stuff. But you just don't know. So just apply. If you find a place that's remote and you want to be remote, just ask them. It might be just specific for that project. So you might apply to a studio and they say no, but maybe in a little bit, like maybe wait 3 or 4 months and apply again, because there might be a different project. It's always changing. There's new projects coming in all the time. So there might be a project where they need a whole bunch of animators, and so they're going to do a hiring frenzy, right? And then all of a sudden they're out of jobs for a little bit, and so there might be just some dead time. Maybe there's a bunch of jobs that are now in the render phase and the lighting phase or whatever, and they don't need as many animators. So you just don't know what phase each studio's in. So I would say just keep applying. Maybe give it 4 months, 6 months, apply again, or check in. Build relationships with recruiters. If there's a place that has a recruiter, you can find them on LinkedIn and just introduce yourself and try to connect with them. On LinkedIn, don't just follow people, connect with them. So a lot of people don't know the difference. On LinkedIn, if you follow someone, it's one way. So you will see all of their posts, but they won't see your posts. They don't really know who you are. If you go in, a lot of times you'll have to go to the three dots on their profile page, and then it'll say connect. Hit connect, and then if they accept it, then they will see your posts and you will see their posts. And that's a better connection. That's networking right there. Because as you post your progress on LinkedIn, post some of your work, post a demo reel, post a personal project, and you can put work in progress on it. Just post it so people can see what you're doing. Or maybe you have some thoughts on something. Post your thoughts, A lot of times I just try to be encouraging. I'll post just encouraging thoughts and stuff like that. It just... Whatever it is that shows who you are, post that stuff so people will see you, recognize you. So then when you apply, they'll be like, hey, I know that name. I've seen them. I'm friends with them on LinkedIn. That gives you a leg up than other people. All right. Let me see. Where was I? Here, sorry guys, it's gonna take me a while to read the chat just to see where we're at. So yeah, definitely Night Cow. Yeah, LinkedIn is where you need to go. Put your stuff out there, man, and connect with people. So what are the best resources for learning Blender? I am not sure. I don't use Blender, so I think Blender has its own learning database of resources. So you might want to just look at their website, because it's open source and there's lots of people working with it. But I would, that's more about learning a program, but learning animation principles. It doesn't matter if someone's teaching you from Maya or whatever it is. As long as it's animation principles, you can watch those videos and learn them the best. So if you don't know the 12 principles of animation, that's the best advice I can give you. 12 principles, grade yourself on each principle so you know which one you need to work on. The one that doesn't necessarily apply to 3D animation is solid drawing, but what I would translate that into 3D is solid posing. So if you get really good at what we were talking about before, looking at it in perspective and from camera, and learning how the human body works, learning the body mechanics. So if you haven't gone to Animation Mentor, they start you off with, everybody starts with the bouncing ball and stuff like that, and so you learn. With the bouncing ball, you learn timing and spacing, and you learn slow in and slow out. And then they give you this little, it's either a ball with a tail or a squirrel character with a tail. And so the tail helps you learn overlap, right? And so then you're going to learn that principle of overlap. Once you get all that down, then you learn body mechanics, which helps you understand when is the body in balance. That's probably an easier way to understand what body mechanics is. Your body always wants to stay in balance or it's going to fall over. So how does your body stay in balance? And a lot of times there's that posto, I forget how to say it, contraposta. It's where when the hips are at one angle, the shoulders are at the other angle. And why is that? Because your body is trying to stay balanced. You don't want to fall over, right? And so there's a lot of opposites happening. If the spine is going back like that, you get an S curve because it's trying to stay straight. If you totally tilted back but didn't bring your pelvis forward, you would just fall straight back, right? Because you wouldn't have any balance. Or think about this. Try to touch your toes. Do this. Go stand against a wall with your butt against the wall. try to touch your toes. You can't bend over because there's nowhere to put your butt back, right? And so if you step away from the wall, try to touch your toes, you'll realize you can do it easier because your butt needs to go back behind your feet in order for your front to go down and touch your toes, because your body needs to stay in balance. So if you're standing right against the wall, your butt's right against the wall, you try to bend over to touch your toes, you can't do it without bending your knees, because now you got to bend your knees to touch your toes. But I'm saying keeping your legs straight, try to bend over, you'll fall on your face, right? And so that's body mechanics. So you want to learn that. All of that before you get to lip sync and acting. I know everybody wants to get into acting and doing all those fun scenes and stuff, but you got to learn the basics, right? And so body mechanics is huge. Learn that. So if that's what you're looking for as far as things to learn, resources to look up, and what do I need to get better at? It's usually most people's work I look at when they say, hey, where am I always point them back to body mechanics, and then what I'll probably ask is, hey, can I see a bouncing ball of yours? I'd rather see a current bouncing ball. A lot of times they'll send me, oh yeah, I did a bouncing ball years ago, here you go. I'm like, well, that doesn't help me because that's where you were a couple years ago. I want to see how you can do a bouncing ball today, because that'll help me understand what you understand about the principles of animation. So a bouncing ball is a good litmus test to know where you're at. So if you're going to come to me and say, hey, can you look at my work and tell me where I'm at? I'll say, do a bouncing ball for me, and then I'll tell you. And I'm always open to that. If anybody wants to do a bouncing ball and send it to me and ask me for some feedback, I'm open to that. So go ahead and do that. But yeah, because if you're humble enough to say, I want to work on the bouncing ball, and that's what it takes, humility too, guys. You gotta not be so prideful and say, no, I just want to. I went to a 4-year college and I'm on acting now. Okay, well then go to someone else and have them help you with that, because I want you to be good at the bouncing ball. And if you nail the bouncing ball, then let's move on. Then show me some body mechanics. Show me a jump. All right, awesome. You nailed that. Now let's go to lip sync and acting. Right? There's a process you got to go through. Because why would I just have you jump to acting and lip sync if you can't do a bouncing ball? If you can't do a jump that looks right? You have to understand these things. It's very important. So hopefully that helps. Let me see where you guys are at here. Yeah, there's good studios in the UK. That's right. Yeah, there's lots of opportunities in the UK, and that's awesome. I got a lot of friends that work over there. So yeah, just keep putting out your stuff, Night Cow. Don't give up. All right. What should you do if you're getting radio silence from an application? I would hold on. Let me give you radio silence so I can take a sip of my coffee. Sorry. All right. I would wait at least a couple weeks, and then maybe reach out to them again and just say, hey, just checking in. I get radio silence a lot back when I was applying to places, and especially the big studios. Man, you just wouldn't hear anything, and so that's another reason why it's important if you know a recruiter at that place, and you can just keep in touch with them and be like, hey, because a lot of times what they'll do, a recruiter can put your thing at the top of the pile. Because if you've never hired anybody, you don't know how daunting it is to go through. And then let's say you've got a couple thousand applicants. You don't really have time to go through every single one of them. So they come up with ways to just weed people out. It's like, maybe it's your resume. Maybe they look at your resume first. Not a lot of places do, but maybe they do. Maybe that's how they weed people out. I've heard some people say that, where it's like, oh, there's spelling errors on your resume. Boom. They're not even going to look at your stuff because you didn't care enough to make your resume look good. The other places might just look right at your reel. Like, they might just look at the first not even 10 seconds, 2 seconds of your reel. Let me see. All right. Yep. I can tell they don't know what they're doing. So you definitely want to make sure on your reel too, the very first thing they see, it might be the only thing they see. So don't start it off slow with just a guy sitting there and then maybe he's talking. And if you got a slow shot like that, put that later. If you got a high action scene, someone's doing something awesome, or maybe they just start talking right away, you can edit your shots too. Maybe your shot starts off slow, but maybe on your reel you want it to start at the point of action, because that's the first thing they're going to see. Do that, right? Because you have to do whatever it takes to put your shot, your demo reel at the top of the pile. So get to know recruiters, ask them for advice. Don't bother them all the time. So like if you wait 2 weeks and then reach out to them, cool. Maybe you wait after that, you don't hear anything from them. Maybe wait a month, check in again, that's totally fine. They actually like that. I've heard from some recruiters. They like people that check in with them. It's like it could be someone, maybe it's a studio you haven't applied to for a couple years and maybe they're not hiring right now. But you want to keep that relationship with the recruiter. Go ahead and send them a message. Just say, hey, just checking in. Do you know if anything's coming up? I just wanted to say hi, see how you guys are doing. So that way you're keeping that relationship going, and they actually like that. What they don't like is calling, texting, whatever, messaging them every couple days. That's spamming, and nobody likes spam, right? And so, right, that'll just blacklist you from them, and they'll be like, nah, we don't want to work with this person. So yeah, you just want to find a balance in that. So hopefully that helps with the radio silence question. Where are we at? We still got some time. I can go over 9 o'clock if I need to. Good point on LinkedIn. I use it, but represents my current career, which is not related to animation. Yeah, I would start. Oh man. Yeah, well, I would use LinkedIn for what you want to do, maybe not what you're currently doing. Because LinkedIn is all about networking for work. So if you don't want to keep doing what you're doing, then don't use LinkedIn for that, right? I have a friend who went to Animation Mentor with me. He was like a few classes behind. He was a sales guy, and he just kept doing that, and that's all he had on LinkedIn too. But he started to post his animation, and he started to recruit, or be friends with recruiters and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden he got to do the Pixar internship, and now he works at Pixar. It's amazing. Like, you just never know. You never know what's going to happen. There's another person I went to Animation Mentor with. Her very first job in animation was for Disney. I mean, that doesn't usually happen, but you never know, right? And so you have to just apply, but use LinkedIn for people to know who you are. The reason why she got her first job in animation at Disney was because of her social media presence. She had it all over Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. People already knew who she was, right, in the industry. So you could go to any one of the animators at Disney and say, hey, do you know who this person is? And they'll be like, yeah, I know who that is. And she's never had a job in animation before, right? It doesn't matter. Get yourself out there. We're all fans of each other's work, right? And so put yourself out there on social media. Find the people. There's people, maybe there's people that are at your same level where you guys can help each other out. Find someone that you think maybe there's someone that's way above you. You can try to connect with them as far as skill goes and see if they can help you out. But if not, find someone that's even just slightly. You look at their work and they're like, man, their work looks a little bit better than mine. Let me reach out to them. Become friends with them. You guys really start to help each other out, because it's a small industry, really. And like, I know people that work at like all the big studios. I'm friends with people, and so you just never know when all of a sudden they might say, hey, do you want to come? We're looking for someone. I can vouch for you. That's huge. If you have someone that can vouch for you to get you a job, yeah, that's the best way you can do it. So anyways, hopefully that helps. Let's see here. I have 2,000 hours in Blender. Still don't know half of it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so much. If you're all you're trying to do is learn a program, I mean, you could. I don't know half of Maya. I know enough of Maya to do what I need it to do, right? And then if I don't know how to do what I need to do, then that's when I'll look up. I don't need to know everything that Maya does. I need to know animation, right? And so my current job is challenging me and helping me learn more and more about how to use Maya even more to do things, and Animbot. Animbot is huge. Like every place I've worked at has used Animbot, or it used to be A Tools. So that's not just something you use at home. Lots of studios use Animbot. So if you can afford, I think they have like an indie package, a small, or what do they call it, freelancer subscription. Definitely look into that and learn Animbot. It's a great tool that will help you accomplish a lot of things you need to do, so that you don't need to know all the technical ways of doing it in Maya. It's good to know the basics of Maya and how to do it, but when you get to the point of like constraints and all that kind of stuff, know the basics, but then you can hop into Animbot to help you do a lot of that other stuff. So it's not cheating. And really, the software, like I said, the software doesn't matter. It's the principles and how much you know about animation. If a studio knows you know animation, they will help you learn the software. But if your animation doesn't look good and you don't know the software, forget it, right? And if you're really good at the software, maybe you want to be a tech animator. That might be something you want to look into. And that job a lot of times is more entry level, of someone that might, like, I know DreamWorks has tech animators that's more entry level, where they just want people to come in and test the rigs and test the rigging and figure it out and do all of that for them. All the technical stuff that I don't understand, that might be a job for you as well. So you can try to see, maybe there's different avenues to get in. So you might be able to get in as a tech animator and then move your way into becoming an animator. There's lots of different ways. There's people that start off as crowd animators. That's another entry level area. So if you see a job posting for crowd animation, go ahead and apply for that. And that's another thing maybe you want to practice. Crowd animators a lot of times have to build cycles, or that's another word for it, cycles animator. So just do a whole bunch of cycles, put that on your reel for that job. And that would be a good foot in the door at some of those studios. Let me see here. When you look at entry-level positions, the ad says they want you to have 2 to 3 years experience. How do you get the experience? That's something I said earlier. A lot of times that's just a template that they put out on the job posting. In my experience, that doesn't matter. I worked on Crash Bandicoot with practically no experience. All they cared about was that my reel looked good and I'm a decent person, and they wanted to work with me. So a lot of times, like I said, if your reel looks good, they know you know animation and you're an awesome person. They know you're a helpful person, a positive person, and then you nail the interview, you've got it. Like, that's the way to do it. Make your reel look good, be a good person, make relationships. That's how you have to do it, right? And so apply, even if it says you need 3 years experience. Who cares? Apply anyway. What's the worst thing that could happen? You get ghosted. What? You're not hearing from them if you don't apply anyway, right? So just apply. Yeah. Let's see what else we got. Yeah. So that's a good point. Resume. So that was Alan says, make a resume with no experience is a pain. So that's a good point too. So you have no experience in animation, but maybe you have experience. So like for me, my resume before I had experience in, before I had a lot of experience in animation. So like when I got the job at Crash Bandicoot, I did a couple of freelance jobs of animation. So those were on there. But then I think of anything I did in the past that might relate. right? So I worked with artists, like musicians, artists, right? So I worked with musicians at the churches, and so I put that in the resume of just saying, look, I know how to. I had to schedule musicians. I had to teach them things. So I wrote in there all the things that applied to an animation position that could possibly apply to an animation position. So it could be just skills that you learned at your other job. So maybe that's all you have is all this experience at another job. But there's skills that you learn there that will apply to being an animator, that will apply to being a good coworker. Write those down. So don't just write the job, but write little bullet points of what you did there, what skills you learned there that apply to that job. So that's more of like a transitional resume. And maybe do a search on that, a Google search on transitional resumes, and see what other people suggest. That's the best way to do it. Get a relationship with a studio. Maybe there's like a local studio. So my first freelancing jobs were I live in Las Vegas, so there's a studio here in town. I happen to know the guy who owns it because we went to Animation Mentor together. But he got me my first freelancing job. He does local TV commercials, and so he got me my first freelancing job doing that. And again, we worked on a little intro for what's that? It's not Puff the Magic Dragon, whatever his name is, that comedian. Anyways, we did a little animated intro thing for him, and then from that I got into another friend I met on Instagram, got me a job doing a Lego commercial, Lego Star Wars, which was crazy. Where did that come from? I have no idea. But that was someone I knew from Instagram. He saw all my posts, and he was like, hey, I got this, they're giving me too much work. I need to help. I need to get some help. Do you want to take this job or talk to them and see if they'll hire you? And so I did, and all of a sudden I'm animating couple Lego Star Wars commercials. Insane, right? You just don't know. So maybe there's a local place that does commercials, a little local production house that does TV commercials. See if they need any animation. Do some stuff for them. That goes on your resume of freelance animator, right? And a lot of times you don't even need to, as a freelance animator, you don't even need to put bullet points on there. Do a little job for a friend, put that on there, but don't say it's for a friend. You just say freelance animator, hired by this company, whatever it is, And so there's ways to make your resume look good without a lot of experience, right? And so definitely, I'm not saying you don't want to lie on your resume. You don't want to do that, but you want to find ways that show how to do this. So if it's something from your past job, or maybe you just did a small job for a friend or someone that has a company that needed some animation done, or graphic arts, or whatever it is, something that's a little bit more towards animation, that's fine. But like I said, most places look at your reel first and then your resume second, right? And so I know a friend of mine at Disney, he said, because he helped pick a lot of animators, and he said, it's just the reel. I just look at the reel, look at the reel, look at the reel, look at the reel. And then maybe he said if it's a toss-up between two people, I might then look at their resume. And he actually said he would prefer if, let's say this person on this side, this person's reel is the same, at the same level as this one. It's a toss-up. This person has more experience. This person has less experience. He actually might prefer the person with less experience because that person's more teachable, more moldable. And you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? So if their quality is the same, but this person has less experience, he would rather work with the less experienced person. Other people, that's his preference. Other people might prefer, well, I don't want to teach someone. I don't have time to teach someone. I want someone with more experience. They might go with that. So you never know who's looking at your reel, right? It might be someone that wants someone young and moldable and new. Lots of times when people are new to animation, there's so much excitement and passion, and you want to tap into that, right? So just don't give up. Keep applying. You never know who's going to look at your stuff, but above applying, get your stuff out there. Make a social media presence. Continue to share where you're at. Ask for feedback from people. Help other people, right? So find people. Maybe there's someone that's maybe at a lower level than you. From your perspective, you're looking at their work going, oh, I could help them. Help them, right? Because you never know. Maybe you're helping that person, and then all of a sudden that person gets a job at some place. A lot of times it's just luck as well. Of they just applied to the right place at the right time, and now they got a job somewhere. And now because you helped them, they're going to help you get a job there, right? You just don't know how it's going to work. So hopefully that helps. So networking. So King Cube Creator. I'm a loner, kept to myself. Where do I start on networking with people? Hey, I work from home. I barely ever get out of the house, right? So social media is the best way. And like I said, LinkedIn, commenting on people's work, being a fan of other people's work, but then sharing your work. You'd be surprised how many people will also be fans of your work, right? You give, it comes back to you. It's how it works. So just be a giving person. Don't just sit around and wait for it to come to you, but be fans of other people's work, and maybe even fans of, like, because maybe you're just mostly on social media being fans of the great big animators and artists, right? Well, maybe try to find some people that are at a lower level that you can be fans of. Hey, that really speaks to me. Reach out to them. Like a lot of their stuff. People on social media, they look a lot of times at, hey, who liked my stuff? Do I recognize these names? And if you continually like someone's stuff, they'll see your name a lot. And so then all of a sudden your name is in their head and they recognize it. Even though you guys have never met, you've never really talked to each other, they know who you are and you know who they are. That's networking, right? Then you post your stuff and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, this person commented on my thing and they liked it. It's like, yeah, you don't know who's looking at your stuff, right? And so the best way is to be a fan of other people, help them out, comment on their work, and then it'll come back to you. I promise you, it will. So that's definitely use social media in that way. All right, this is gonna be the last question, and we gotta get going. Let's see here. Actually, so that last thing wasn't a question. Anybody else have one last question? And then we'll get going. I didn't get to animating the bouncing ball. That was just there in case we didn't have anything to share. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys, you see that empty box above the chat? If you hover over that, if you're on a computer, you can add animated GIFs. It's kind of fun. And there's little sound effects you can do down below the video window too. I should have said that at the beginning. Oops. Awesome. Cool. Is everybody good? We ready to move on? Maybe I might do this again next week. I might have to do it at an earlier time before I have to take kids to school and stuff. But yeah. I'll just wait a little bit, see if there's any more questions. Awesome. All right. Good deal, guys. Awesome. I'm so glad that this was helpful. And, thanks for, Happy New Year to you too. Thanks for, sharing in the chat. Hopefully next time we'll get a lot more people involved too. I want to help as many people as I can. The reason why I'm doing this is because people helped me, right? And so you have to help each other out. So if there's the best advice I can give you is help others out. Right. The best antidote to rejection is helping others out. So don't get discouraged when you're being rejected. That's this job. Like when you're freelancing, you're trying to find work, you're going to be rejected a lot. But there's lots of studios, and now that lots of places are remote, there's a lot more opportunities. When I worked at PlayStation, they're based out of San Diego. There's no way I could have worked for PlayStation if they weren't open to people working remote, because I'm not going to move to San Diego. I live in Las Vegas, and I'm not willing right now because of my family to move that far. So you just don't know where you're at in your life, what opportunities there are. So be friendly to everybody, be positive, help others out, and it will come back to you. All right, guys. All right, thank you. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining, and we'll do this again soon.